today. I'm going to be going and dropping her today. And I asked her in the morning, our last cup of tea together at home, what do you want to be doing after 4 years of your degree? And she said, Ma, I want to be an entrepreneur. So it was so beautiful for me to walk in today in the campus stand launch by Dr. Jitendra Singh. And such a wonderful feeling that every Indian, every Bharati today aspires to be an entrepreneur. And events like Campus Tank, Apna Technology have contributed to this dream coming into reality. We all celebrated 7.8% GDP last quarter. I must put it on record that the maximum benefit for the 7.8% came from startups this time. A wonderful thought which has never been put in record. The government has been very instrumental in making India the most leading pioneer in terms of incubation and setup of startups. From third to number one till Viksit Bharat is going to be a reality. It's not a dream because the government, angel investors, and now even academy is working towards it. We've had lovely unicorns like PhonePe, Byju's, Ola, and today we have about 51% of our startups coming from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which is again a remarkable data point. University. In making this initiative, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest one in the world that we aspire for. We want to be funding the best unicorns of the world in the coming years. And we urge the government, we urge all Indian investors, all entrepreneurs, and academia to join hands with us in this initiative and create this miracle of making the best unicorns from this nation called Asam के विचार में शक्ति है, हर तरह देश की धरती है। यही समय है, सही समय है, भारत का अनमोल समय है। तुम उठ जाओ, तुम जुड़ जाओ, सामर्थ्य को अपनी पहचान, भारत का अनमोल समय है। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
बीच में मौजूद है और सोचने से हमने विभूत किया है। एक बार सादर तालियों के साथ प्रोफेसर हिमानी सूची का आभार व्यक्त करें।
Now, to welcome all of us at this landmark occasion, I will take a moment to invite the visionary behind Chandigarh University's meteoric rise, Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha and Honorable Chancellor, Shri Satnam Singh Sandhu. Please invite the
Chief Guest of the Day, Honorable Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh, distinguished guests, dear faculty members, dear students. मैं सबसे पहले तहे दिल से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ आदरणीय डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी को, जिन्होंने हमारे इनिशिएटिव को एक नई ऊर्जा देने के लिए, एक गति प्रदान करने के लिए हमें समय दिया और आज इसके लॉन्च के लिए हमारे पास पधारे हैं। डॉक्टर साहब, तहे दिल से आपका शुक्रिया, हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ी मोटिवेशन होगी। सॉफ्ट लॉन्च के बाद जो प्रोग्रेस है कैंपस टाइप की, वो मेरे साथियों ने आपसे शेयर की और मुझे लगता है कि आज के बाद आपकी प्रेजेंस में इसको एक नई गति और नई ऊर्जा इसको मिलने वाली है। दोस्तों, किसी भी नेशन की प्रोग्रेस या ग्रोथ उस नेशन के विजन पे डिपेंड करती है और उस नेशन का विजन उसके लीडरशिप और नेतृत्व पे डिपेंड करता है। और हम फॉर्चुनेट हैं, हमारा सौभाग्य है कि हमारे देश का नेतृत्व पिछले 11 साल से ऐसे लीडरशिप के हाथ में जिन्होंने क्लियर कर देश को एक विजन दिया है। और विजन क्या है? आत्मनिर्भर भारत और विकसित भारत। सिंपल सी बात है, 2 शब्दों में, 2 सेंटेंसेस में सब कुछ कंप्लीट हो जाता है। और नेशन के विजन को फुलफिल करने के लिए, अचीव करने के लिए फिर पूरी नेशन की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है। ये देश की इंस्टीट्यूशन की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि जो देश के नेतृत्व में देश को विजन दिया उसको अचीव करने के लिए वो लग जाए। और मुझे इस बात की खुशी है कि चंडीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी हमेशा ही अपनी हम्बल इनिशिएटिव लेती है और अब अपना के साथ आने के बाद और आप सभी लोगों के, हमारा तो हौसला बढ़ा है आपसे मिलकर, वही आपसे मिलकर इतना हौसला बढ़ा है। मैम यहाँ पे बैठे हैं, ACC हमारे साथ बैठी है, अग्रवाल साहब बैठे हैं, तो आज तो हमारी ताकत जो है, लगता है कि दुगनी चौगनी हो रही है। पहले दिन से आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मेरे नौजवान साथी भी यहाँ पे बैठे हैं, क्योंकि ये यंग एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप प्रोग्राम है। मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि चंडीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी भी एक स्टार्टअप था, और ऐसा स्टार्टअप था जो आज से 25 साल पहले, जब देश के पास ऐसा विजन नहीं था, क्योंकि 2014 में बताया गया कि हमारे पास 300 या 400 के करीब स्टार्टअप थे, आज चाहे पौने 2 लाख हो गए, लेकिन उस समय पे कुछ चर्चा ही नहीं थी, कोई बात ही नहीं थी। और चंडीगढ़ यूनिवर्सिटी का स्टार्टअप निकला कहां से? पंजाब के एक सबसे बैकवर्ड इंटीरियर गांव से, जहां पे आज फ्लड है ना सिचुएशन, सतलुज के किनारे। और किस परिवार से निकला? जिस फैमिली में कोई पढ़ा लिखा नहीं। मेरी फैमिली में कोई एजुकेटेड नहीं था, मेरे गांव में कोई स्कूल नहीं था, और मेरे पिताजी एक स्मॉल स्केल लोअर मिडिल क्लास में से एक छोटे फार्मर थे। और मुझे आज भी याद है दरअसल कि जब मैं फर्स्ट टाइम स्कूल गया तो हमारे गांव में नहीं था, मेरी माता जी ने, हम बीबी बोलते हैं अपने मम्मी को, और मेरी बीबी ने मेरे लिए बस्ता तैयार किया। वो कहां से किया? मेरे पिताजी खेतों में यूरिया फर्टिलाइजर का बोरा खाली करके लेके आए, मेरी माँ ने उसको धोया, धोकर उसमें पत्ती और कैदा दिया, और मुझे स्कूल के लिए वहां से घर से रुखसत लेके जाओ। खाली हाथ गांव छोड़ के निकले थे, और कोई गाइड करने वाला नहीं था, लेकिन देश ने हमें बहुत कुछ दिया। आज जो कुछ भी है, और भगवान ने देखो, घर में एजुकेशन, ना गांव में पढ़ा लिखा, और ना गांव में स्कूल, और भगवान ने कृपा वैसे भी काम भी एजुकेशन का दे दिया कि तू स्टार्टअप तो शुरू करेगा, लेकिन एजुकेशन करेगा। 100 स्टूडेंट्स के साथ हमने शुरू किया था आज से 25 साल पहले अपना छोटा सा इंस्टीट्यूशन। और हमें खुशी है कि आज इस देश ने हमें इतनी समर्था दी कि हम देश की सबसे बड़ी और नंबर 1 प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटी बनाने में कामयाब हैं। ये क्यों हुआ, कैसे हुआ? ये इस देश की मट्टी में, इस देश के पानी में, इस देश के दरवाजे में शक्ति। दरअसल मैं 25 साल से यूथ के साथ इंटरेक्ट कर रहा हूं, उनके साथ रहता हूं। मैंने ये पाया है कि हमारे यूथ में कोई कमी नहीं, ये यूथ से कहीं बेहतर है। दुनिया के किसी भी यूथ से हमारा यूथ बहुत बेहतर है। अगर इनको नहीं मिला तो इनको अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिली, इनको अवसर नहीं मिला, इनको मौका नहीं मिला। अब जब इनको मौका मिलेगा, अब देखिएगा जो विकसित भारत का, आत्मनिर्भर भारत का विजन हमारे आदरणीय प्राइम मिनिस्टर साहब ने दिया है, उसको समय से पहले पूरा करेंगे। और उसमें सबसे बड़ा योगदान कैंपस टाइम का होगा, इस प्लेटफॉर्म को होगा। मैं आपको दावे के साथ कहता हूँ, क्योंकि जितने भी लोग इस इनिशिएटिव में लगे वो यंग है, और ब्लेसिंग उनके साथ हमारे सीनियर लोगों की है, और हम पे भरोसा कर रहे हैं, हमारे साथ हैं। और मुझे खुशी है कि कुछ दिनों में 20,000 जो हमारे युवा हैं एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप आना चाहते हैं, उन्होंने रजिस्ट्रेशन किया है 20,000, और 600 स्टार्टअप इसमें रजिस्टर हुए हैं। और हमारा टारगेट है कि फर्स्ट सीजन में, ये फर्स्ट सीजन हमारा है, और फर्स्ट सीजन में 1,000 स्टार्टअप हम देश के सामने लेके जाएंगे, जिसमें से जो बेस्ट यूनिकॉर्न बनने की क्षमता होगी उनको हम आगे लेके जाने का काम करेंगे। चाहिए क्या स्टार्टअप के लिए? चाहिए, अभी अग्रवाल साहब भी बता रहे थे, हमें फंडिंग चाहिए, हमें अपॉर्चुनिटी चाहिए, हमें मेंटर चाहिए। आइडिया तो आपके पास है, और ये आइडिया हमारे भी, हमारे देश की तकदीर भी बदलेंगे। मैं ज्यादा समय नहीं लूंगा, लेकिन एक चीज जरूर मैं डॉक्टर साहब आपके सामने रखना चाहूंगा, ये हमारा मिशन है, ये हमारा इनिशिएटिव नहीं है, ये हमारा मिशन है, और मिशन पे हम लगे रहेंगे जितनी देर तक ये मिशन आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के विजन को कंप्लीट करने के लिए पूरा नहीं होगा। हम टिक कर नहीं बैठेंगे, दिन रात काम करेंगे, और आपके सामने रिजल्ट लेके आएंगे। तहे दिल से AICTE के चेयरमैन साहब बैठे हैं, सभी साथियों का जिन्होंने हमारे पे ट्रस्ट किया, तहे दिल से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद।
To kindly come up and launch the campus stand, please. एक बार फोटो शामिल के साथ आज के हमारे करेंगे, and also request our all our esteemed guests along with our Honorable Chief Guest of the Day, Shri Dr. Jitendra Singh ji, to kindly come and inaugurate
Chairman, Dr. Mani, Dr. Sita, members of the faculty, friends from industry, young startups, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I have to actually, even though Satnamji was very kind in conveying his gratitude to me for being over here, but I must, on the contrary, thank him for making me a part of this, because this is very close to my heart. And in fact, when he called me up, I was traveling in a very peripheral flood-hit area, and he said, I know it's difficult for you, वक्त कटने वास्ते मुश्किल होगी, and I said कि तुसी नाम ही बुलाओ तो मैं तभी आया बनता. So the point is, and as most of us are associated with the task of innovation, research, and we've been taught not to speak without evidence. So what I'm saying is not out of simple politeness or courtesy towards Mr. Sandhu. I think primarily there are three reasons for that. A, that time has come to change the mindset of the people. Now what Himani was saying, what others were saying has got deeply connected or deeply related to the mindset which we are. The mindset is not ready. In fact, to add to what she was saying, the government is forthcoming, the private sector is not ready. At the risk of sounding literally polite, I was telling some of the industry friends yesterday, I said we have gone to the extent of even opening up the nuclear sector to private players. But where is the industry partner for that? Suppose tomorrow I say I am going to put up a nuclear plant in Chandigarh itself. Who is there from industry who will come to take it up? And that is not to grudge the industry, because they didn't know that suddenly this would happen. They are reconciled to the fact that look at this nuclear sector, this space sector, they were out of bounds for us, so we had to concentrate on manufacturing and other areas. And suddenly they never realized that there could be a political dispensation headed by someone like Prime Minister Modi, who had the capacity to break the taboos of the past and take out the unorthodox decisions. And that's precisely what has happened. So actually now, as was being said earlier, I think it's an excellent milieu, but we have to prepare ourselves, and for that kind of an exercise or pursuit, these events are important. And also because Chandigarh University is now, I've seen it growing over the years, it has emerged in a big way in a private sector university, and the rating of a university or an education institution in this country is not necessarily reflected by what happens, what is projected through the magazines who are in the habit of coming out annual ratings. I think the best way to assess the rating is to go through the counseling patterns that happen. In case of engineering courses, in the IIT JEE, in case of medical courses, in the JEE. And I was in fact telling yesterday I was at Roorkee, which is a 175-year-old, the oldest engineering institute in Asia. And I was saying the best thing to watch is how the IIT JEE counseling pattern happens. So we come across many boys who do not prefer a new IIT, they would prefer Chandigarh University. Or you would come across in JEE counseling some of the youngsters who will not prefer a new AIMS, they would rather prefer a private medical college. So I think that is what is actual feedback for us, because they are more awakened than us. So I also have to use this opportunity to compliment Professor Sandhu and the entire team for the manner, the dedication, the commitment that he's brought this institution up. He was narrating his story, that starting from a humble beginning with almost no guidance. I think that's common to all of us. तो तुसी फिर भी खुशकिस्मत से साढ़े बुजुर्गों ने तो ना रखने भी नहीं से आते. हमारे बुजुर्गों को देखिए, कोई काला सिंह, कोई गुलाब सिंह, कोई शेर सिंह. Even vocabulary was lacking. At least they could name you Satnam Singh. I think I'm the first generation who had the benefit of having a proper name. And that's because it was all a rural upbringing, exposed mostly to agriculture and all. But then, of course, It's been an amazing journey after independence and more so over the last 1 decade. The other important reason for me to be over here is that we have to engage private sector to as much extent as we can. And for decades together, there has been a mutual skepticism. The private sector looks at the government sector as a bunch of bribe takers. कि यहाँ तो कोई काम होता ही नहीं जब तक हथेली गर्म ना करो. And they walk away with that prejudice. Whereas the government sector for decades has looked at the private sector as a bunch of black marketeers, fleecers. But they don't realize that living in a global world that we are, which is getting shrunken more and more each day, we have no other option but to be global. You have no other option. If we have to move on, we have to move on together. And that is something which we have to work upon because that mindset is still there. In fact, the other day I was narrating an example of riding a bus. When you ride a bus or a cab, you don't know who's sitting next to you, a saint or a devil. But when the bus breaks down, the driver says, look here gentlemen, now I am going to be in the seat and you give me the push. So everybody gets down. Then you don't tell the devil, कि आप जोर नहीं लगाना, because तुम दुष्ट हो. You want him also to put as much of his might because your goal is common destination. So if our goal is to reach that pedestal that we have envisaged ourselves, whatever name you give it, Viksit Bharat or 2047 Bharat, then you have to move on and integrate it. And therefore, and of course, the last reason is that this initiative of Campus Tank is also one of the first of its kind, at least in North India, because North India has been slightly late in taking off this movement. And as was maintained, the largest startup launchpad for young founders, integrating Apna, AICTE, etc. And then funding pool of $6 million and below 30 groups, because more than 70% of the population today is below the age of 40, so we can't do business without them. And of course, the industry leaders as well being set from more than 500 companies. Now, I think the priority now would be also, if we actually want to push forward the startup movement, we have to be very realistic. No amount of sermonizing is going to help these boys. I mean, this is a formal ceremony, otherwise I usually avoid delivering lectures. I ask the organizers to engage them in telling me what they wish to, and then I respond, because otherwise I don't want to be a subject of a joke in their evening gossip. जैसा आप एक आया था लीडर, अब झेलना पड़ा उसको, आधा घंटा सुनना पड़ा, because they know what to do and they also know how much to unlearn from what has been told to them in this room. So they are very fast, very quick, and very real time. So what is important is that we have certain lists to be clear. For example, for years we have been obsessed with this idea. When you talk of startup, you talk of IT, you talk of AI, you talk of ML. Sounds very good, sounds very romantic. And you think that's about all. No, it's not so at all. It just happened incidentally, the concept of startup came from the West, landed in Bengaluru, which happened to be IT hub, and you thought it was so. And every potential IIT or an aspirant IT to make an aspirant startup to make an impression says, sir, मैंने ML में भी किया, मैंने AI किया. In India, your actual domain is agri startup. And you have a whole lot of unexplored. Now we are talking of moving on from rank 4 to rank 3, rank 2, rank 1. How do you move? How is that value addition going to come from? As innovators, as scientific researchers, have we asked ourselves? The value addition will come from those sectors which are made underexplored, unexplored, which means our ocean resources. 11,000 kilometer long coastal area, huge amount of wealth lying inside. That is going to be the new area of startups tomorrow. Minerals, metals, fisheries, mining below the sea. I was telling an IAS officer, I said, tomorrow we might need to have a secretary for checking the illegal mining below the surface of sea, as you are doing on the surface of it. The second is of course space, and third most importantly, which is also related to these North Indian states because they are close to Himalayas, is the Himalayas. We have about 40% of workforce in the in the agri sector. The problem is the agri startup of today, agriculture of today is not the farmer of the your job and 2 बीघा ज़मीन में देगा. He is in fact a technocrat. He doesn't even have to move in the fields or even to move a tractor. It's all done by an automated machine. He pushes off the drone and the drone does the pesticide, also does the irrigation. We have beautiful demonstrations of this. We have one of the institutes in Mysore. I wish some of you can go there. And this is the newest. We have launched Aroma Mission, for example, just over 4 years back. We have more than 3,000 startups rolling in millions. And that is evident for the fact that many of the corporate boys have left their jobs. One of them an MBA, the other one a BTech, working in Bangalore, came back to do this because they found this more profitable. So you have to then also get over that speaking very fancy, loud, technical names makes you a better startup. Ultimately it ends up how much you make out of it. Because however, fanciful or romantic may be the title of your startup, the next day when you find your peer driving down in a BMW, you say, hell with this, I better do what he's doing. So we have to make you esteemed, equal members of society. So that is what and that's where these universities can come in. Secondly, there is the myth कि साहब हम क्या करें, वो तो बंगलौर में रहता है इसलिए करता है. That's a common refrain. I think that's an apologetic statement because you do not want to exert or you do not have the required passion. Do you know 49 point something, that means almost 50% of the startups today come from the B towns, not from Bombay, Bangalore. You have to reverse that thinking. Because in Bombay we have plenty of, because the aspiration level in our B towns is much, much higher. They want to prove themselves to be equal to the metro peers. And in metros they don't have a dearth of livelihood. If you go to Bombay, knock the door of Bollywood, जैसे पंजाब से हर आदमी धर्मेंद्र बनने जाता था, कि वो धर्मेंद्र नहीं बनेगा, क्लैपर बॉय बन जाएगा, क्लैपर बॉय नहीं बनेगा, एक्स्ट्रा बन जाएगा, वो भी नहीं बनेगा तो कैंटीन खोल लेगा. कहते मुंबई में कोई भूखा नहीं सोता. But it's not so in the smaller towns. Now that is why I usually like visiting smaller towns, meets government school. The other day I was in one of the government girls' school and a place called Dholpur, which is an aspirational district, relatively not so much in the mainstream. And as usual, I said, let the girls do talking, and then I just thought, I was amazed. A class 8 girl stands up and tells me that I have to compliment you for the Vigyan Jyoti scheme which you have launched for school girls. I have availed of it. I feel confident. I feel benefited, but I have a grievance and a complaint. And she pointed, my other sister is class 6. Why have you kept the cut-off class 8? Why not 6? See the aspiration level. The first thing I came back to Delhi, I called up the secretary and I said, look at it, immediately take down this before I forget it. So we have to go by the priorities and the aspirations. This is an aspirational India and you have to be led by that. So that is the second myth we have to play. And the third one, of course, is startup is only for youngsters. No, it's not. For example, in millets, because we are dealing with all of them, our best startups are plus 60. And the first, and one of them is a retired person from one of the institutes from Mysore. Then there are the two ladies who now open up food outlets also in Delhi. They are also into 60s. So therefore, my humble suggestion next time would be, as I have already started doing in whatever the things that I am organizing, that for programs like this or for exhibitions like this, make sure and insist that you have at least one parent accompanying the boy or a girl. Because the first corrupting influence starts from, okay, साहब वो ये घर जाके बताएंगे वहाँ गए थे, वो हंस रहा है, यही बात करेंगे पिताजी. He says he is nodding his head. कहीं कहाँ गए थे, क्या कितना 4 घंटे लगे, क्या हुआ यार, क्या सतनाम सिंह संधू जी ने तो इतनी बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी बना ली, साम्राज्य बन गया, राज्यसभा के MP भी बन गए. वो डॉक्टर जिसका सोचने से पहले डॉक्टरी करता रहा, मिनिस्टर बन गया. बाकी सब ने बोला तू क्यों अपना वक्त ज़ाया करता है. मुझे सुबह किसी ने बोला वो क्या आकाश ज्वाइन करना है तो फौरन वहाँ चल. And not their fault, because no parent thinks bad for the children, but they don't have that kind of exposure. why I am talking like this is because I tend to learn every day. I sometimes learn more than the youngsters when I get restless with them. I said when everything was here, then somebody asked me, why did you find out? I said, I found out from here. And I said, why did you find out from here? Because the whole day you were changing your display picture for someone who may not have even seen it. So the point is, these are some of the bits that we have to clear. In fact, if we really want to use our potential to the maximum, I agree with Sandhu Saab that our potential is immense. For much of the lack of resources or the support for the government sector, we were making up from the human resource. For example, in space, our entire NASA is being run by the Indian boys and girls. Over here, you've seen those pictures of Vikram Sarabhai carrying some of his Samana, the carriage of his bicycle. And that's why our space missions are not even 20% costing of what they do. So we have immense human resources, but we didn't have, as to add to what the Chancellor was saying, we didn't have the right kind of milieu which is expected for the policy makers, which is expected for the political discourse, which has happened after Prime Minister Modi came in. Now it's up to us how best can we make use of this. And for that matter, industry has to be there and be very frank. We celebrate the partnership. It's not that. You be ruthless business, have a ruthless business deal to make a startup successful. It's easy to start a startup, difficult to do, to sustain. It has to be like that. It has to be a very hard deal financially because ultimately how much of the product it was such a success that he bought a whole lot of it when he started selling. Finally, COVID came to us halt and his Sawan is still there. Similarly, also the cervical vaccine, we got Serum Institute, Bombay of the Poonawala, first on the board. We have come out with India's first ever antibiotic, which is called nephithromycin. Earlier on, all these salts used to come. We identified a company. I said we need to have a company which is multinational, India-based, and which needs us more than we need it. So we had a company which was not doing so well over the last 4 or 5 years. They came up with a partner. So you have to have a strong industry linkage right from the beginning and make sure that they will sustain it. And therefore, as far as the government is concerned, as our R&D, GERD has more than doubled. It was 60,196 crore. 2014 is gone up to 1,27,381 crore. So what I'm trying to say is there is no lack of funding also. Our budget in each of the science departments has more than doubled. For example, even in Department of Space and Science and Technology, it's gone more than 900% higher. So in each of the departments. But what in addition has been done is that we have opened up, we have given you all liberty, all deregulations to align with the private sector. And we have come out with structured mechanisms. For example, if you are into biotech, because that is another sector. This IT and ML is going to be short-lived. Your biotech and agri is going to sustain in India. So biotech, in fact, that's a considered view of the economists all over the world that the next revolution, economic industrial revolution will be biotech driven, just as the last one was IT driven. And your entire economy would shift from manufacturing to regenerative processes, to genetic processes, to recycling, etc., etc. And we have formed a structure. That's what the youngsters need to know. We have a structure. We have made an interface called BIRAC, Biotechnology Industry Research Application Council, that facilitates your collaboration, determines the nature of collaboration, determines the theme of collaboration depending on the market dynamics. I said, ask the market what they want. Don't push it on them. That determines the scale of collaboration, also determines the entities which have to collaborate, domestically and similarly in space, we have found an similar interface called InSpace. So please make use of that. Everything is there on your mobiles. And if our lavender, what I was talking, is successful because we already had a leading perfume house, which has been there for 5 generations, not going to name it. They put in the distilleries in the field, picked up the material from there, sold in the Maharashtra market. Each small container started selling for 15,000 each. The boys became millionaires overnight. To begin with, the least turnover for each of these boys, profit was at least not less than 60 lakh per annum. And then they kept going up and up. And now I said, if you scale up, you have to add value. That's another thing for startups, because to sustain, you have to keep moving to the next level because the number of competitors keeps increasing. And as far as we are concerned, we are there now. We also have floated National Research Foundation, which is primarily meant for the universities also, for the others also. We have dedicated now schemes meant for university. The National Research Foundation done was primarily because I had this in mind that most of our benefit was being taken by IITs and IIScs because the parameters were such. The other universities did not live up to that or qualify to that. So we have tried to democratize the funding resources even for the government sector. And at the same time, we have also developed a mechanism, not only that we have allowed the private sector, which was not allowed for 50, 60 years, we have also created separate structure to facilitate your collaboration with private sector. So I think we have gone already one step extra, and therefore, and the results are happening in a very miraculous manner. In Global Innovation Index, we were 81 rank, now we are 39, because we have to go by the global benchmarks. It's not that I do. In startups, of course, as I said, more than now almost 50% metro, and somebody was talking about the women startup. Do you know out of these 1.7 lakh or 1.8 lakh startups that we have? The other day I was going through statistics, as much as nearly 60% are women-led. So we should stop talking that also. We will allow women, we will encourage. That is now sounding more patriarchal, or may I say apologetic, because you don't want a woman to be there. Now women are beckoning you to be led by them. And please accept that with all the modesty at your command. And I am myself dealing with the such projects. Our Aditya project led by Nijar, a woman from Tamil Nadu. Our Chandrayaan 3, the second head was Kalpana. And most of our projects are led by women. So it's no longer women participating or women, you being very patronizing. You be ready to be led by them. And they are doing this beautifully. That's happening right in front of our eyes. That's why in patent filing we've gone to rank 6 in the world. This happened only last 4-5 years. Because these are some of the eye-opener facts that are happening. But what is more important is that out of the 64,000 odd patents that have been filed in the recent years, as many as almost 56% are Indian residents or residing Indian patents. You understand that? नहीं तो पहले आप कहते थे आपके जाके पेरेंट्स भी कहेंगे यार इससे कुछ नहीं बनेगा, हर कोई तो फलाना बाहर गया तो नोबेल प्राइज मिला फलाना. These are the 56% boys and girls born here, brought up here, groomed here, educated here, funded here, supported here, filed their patent from here. So that also has reversed. You can be here because India today is offering you everything which other country doesn't offer, including the resource material. The other day I had a group of boys referred to me because I'm also a medical teacher and a profession, and they came to ask me, they didn't want to do a project, they came from Germany, what subject would they like to, would they prefer? So I said, you name a disease and I'll give you one. We have such a vast resource in every sector. Now it's up to us how we deal with that, and therefore I think it is, as I said, one of the best times happening. I agree with ma'am what she was saying. But I think it's more important for them to understand. Now I wish I was born in this time. And now you are born. So you have not done any favor to yourself. It's an accidental birth. No, accidental may not sound polite. I will say incidental birth. Because you didn't ask to be born in this age. Your parents also didn't know you will be born. But God has blessed you with a providential destiny. कितना बड़ा चमत्कार हुआ आपके ऊपर. You are born at a time when you are, now we are talking of Viksit Bharat 2047. So when that 100th Independence Day happens, who are the ones going to be there? It's you guys. Some of you hoisting the flag, some of you singing the national anthem, some of you being awarded there. May not be many others. So you have a privilege which nobody else had. Now it's up to you. And why I said in the beginning, before I conclude, that I must compliment, that's why I was there, that North India, we are still to a large extent obsessed by this Sarkari operation program, which we need to do. There's not much outside that. That is rather something which prisons you into a small shell. And that's because our parents, our grandparents went through that. We were for a long period of time under a colonial rule, we were in a feudal mindset. लाहौर हमारी राजधानी थी, कोई बड़ा अच्छा कोई परिवार होता तो वहाँ जाके ग्रेजुएशन कर लेता, नहीं तुम्हारे यहाँ फर्स्ट कॉलेज गवर्नमेंट कॉलेज लाहौर फॉर लॉन्ग टाइम. तो एंड देन वी वर ट्यूटर लाइक दैट कि साहब अगर कोई नौकरी देंगे तो वही हमारा रोजगार होगा. So that is why not in this part of the country, is Punjab and some of these belt, which is because it's all was first like Punjab, all these 3-4 states. we need to have a greater push than before. Because unless we come out of that mindset, then we will not be able to make the best of it. And that is why I said next time we'll also have the parents over here. And I'm sure when we talk of Viksit Bharat, I can go back home with the satisfaction that today I have addressed the audience who are actually going to be the architects of 2047 Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir, for your inspiring and wisdomful words. And I'm very sure all the young cross bearers of the vision of the 10 year round of applause for sir.